You've seen this happen before. A piece of plastic looks perfectly normal until you bend it. Suddenly, right along the fold, it turns white. Not painted white, not dusty, not scratched on the surface, just white. And the weirdest part is, it can happen in seconds. A smooth black zip tie, a phone charger cable, the corner of a plastic lid, a cheap toy, a pen cap, a storage box. Bend it hard enough and that pale mark appears like the plastic just gave up and changed color. So what is that? Is the plastic breaking? Is air getting trapped inside it? Is the color being stretched apart? Or is your eye being tricked by light? Because the truth is, that white line is not random at all. It's a warning. Plastic doesn't turn white when you bend it because it suddenly becomes a different color. It turns white because the material itself is starting to fail in a very specific way. And that tiny color change is your first clue that something inside the plastic has changed. To understand this, we need to look at what plastic really is. Plastic might look smooth and solid, but on the inside, it's made of huge tangled molecular chains. Think of it like a giant bowl of cooked spaghetti, except the spaghetti strands are long polymer molecules all wrapped, twisted, and packed together. When the plastic is at rest, those chains are distributed in a way that lets light pass through or reflect in a relatively uniform pattern. That's why the surface looks consistent. Smooth plastic looks like one solid color because light is bouncing back to your eyes in a stable way. But when you bend the plastic, the outside and the inside of the bend don't experience the same thing. The outer side gets stretched, the inner side gets compressed, and right in the middle, stress starts building. At first, the material can handle it. The polymer chains shift a little. They slide, stretch, and rearrange. That part is still reversible in some plastics. Bend it back and maybe nothing obvious happens. But once the stress gets too high, the inside of the plastic starts developing tiny damage zones. Not giant cracks, not the kind you can easily see. Microscopic damage, tiny voids, tiny separations, tiny regions where the material is no longer one smooth, uniform mass. And that is where the white color comes from. Because white in this case is really a light problem. When the plastic is still uniform, light travels through it or reflects off it in a more organized way. But when all those tiny internal defects appear, light starts scattering in many different directions. Instead of passing cleanly through the material or reflecting smoothly, it gets bounced around by all those microscopic gaps and fractured reggie. And when light scatters in many directions like that, your eyes often interpret it as white or pale. So the plastic did not magically become white, it became damaged in a way that makes light scatter. That's the whole trick. You are not seeing white material, you are seeing the optical signature of stress. A good way to imagine it is this. Clear ice looks clear when it is solid and uniform, but crush it, crack it, or fill it with tiny air gaps, and suddenly it looks cloudy white. The material is still ice. What changed is how light moves through it. Plastic can do something very similar. The moment bending creates microscopic cracks, voids, or localized stretching damage, the light loses its clean path. It scatters, and the bent area turns pale. This effect even has a name in materials science. In many plastics, that whitening is linked to a process called crazing. Crazing happens when the material forms tiny narrow regions of damage under stress. These regions are full of microvoids and fibrils, basically stretched out structures inside the plastic. They are small, but they completely change the way light behaves. And that's why a black, blue, red, or transparent plastic part can suddenly show a white stress mark when bent. The color you originally saw came from pigments and from the way the material interacted with light as one continuous surface. But once internal stress reorganizes that structure and starts creating microscopic damage, the light no longer behaves the same way. The scattered light overwhelms the original clean appearance, and the stress zone looks milky or white. This is also why the whitening often appears right before something snaps. That white mark is not just cosmetic. It often means the plastic has passed from simple bending into permanent structural damage. It's the material telling you, I'm not just flexing anymore, I'm failing. And that's why some cheap plastic objects seem to age instantly after one hard bend. The surface may still be intact enough to hold together, but internally, the structure has already been compromised. Now, not all plastics behave exactly the same way. Some are flexible and can absorb more deformation before showing stress whitening. Others are brittle and show it much faster. The exact effect depends on the type of polymer, the thickness of the piece, how fast you bend it, the temperature, and whether the material has fillers, dyes, or reinforcements mixed into it. A soft plastic bag usually won't whiten the same way a rigid plastic ruler might. A tough polypropylene hinge can flex over and over, while a brittle polystyrene part might show whitening almost immediately. But the principle stays the same. Stress changes structure. Structure changes light, and light reveals damage. That's why this is such a satisfying everyday science phenomenon, because at first, it looks like a color mystery. But it's actually a mechanical failure story happening in real time. The plastic isn't being painted white, it's being injured white. Every bend is pulling on long molecular chains. Every extra bit of force is creating stress concentrations. And once the internal structure stops staying uniform, light exposes the damage for you. So the next time you bend a plastic object and see that pale line appear, you're watching a hidden material process become visible. You're seeing the moment when an invisible force leaves a visible fingerprint. Not because the plastic changed its color, but because the inside changed its shape, and light told on it. That white mark is what stress looks like. It's the moment plastic stops acting perfectly solid and starts showing the tiny internal chaos your eyes were never supposed to notice. And once you see it that way, you'll never look at bent plastic the same again.